So we'll start with why Protomatrix. There's multiple reasons why customers come to Protomatrix, but these are the top 3 reasons that we see over and over again. First, if you ever feel overwhelmed with personal tasks, meetings, and emails, you just have so many things that's on your plate, and you're trying to get a grasp of everything that you have to do and be able to understand where you should spend your time best. And then 2, if you don't know what your team priorities are and you wish you did. And then thirdly, if you feel like your organization is not always aligned on what's most important and urgent. So in today's webinar, I'll go quickly through the various features of Protomatrix, but at the same time, help you understand how we can tackle all 3 of these. So let's start with the fundamental behind Protomatrix. There's a famous quote attributed to former President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." Now, what I really like about this quote is that it helps us understand that things don't just fall in one bucket. It's not a list. Instead, we should take everything that we have to do and look at from the 2 dimensions of importance and urgency. So when we actually put that into practice, what you end up doing is having what's called the Eisenhower Matrix. So if I were to ask you, what are all the things you have to work on today? Guess what? You're going to write me a long list, right? So the next question is, what do you work on first? Is it the first thing that's on your list or the thing that's last on your list? Now, what happens to the vast majority of us is that the last thing in tends to be the first thing out. And the reason for that is because it's top of mind, right? When you start your day and you look at your emails, guess what? It's that last email that actually draws our attention. And so we end up responding to that first. Is it the most important email? Unlikely. So when we actually put that into practice and put it into the Eisenhower matrix, instead, what you ask is the following: is this task important? And then is this task urgent? And so when you do that exercise, you end up with the things that are high priority, which are your important and urgent tasks. Then your important but not urgent, that's your medium priority. Things that are urgent but not important would be low priority. And then lastly, you have uncategorized for everything else. If you have something that's not important and not urgent, maybe you shouldn't even write it down, right? And so uncategorized becomes your inbox then to capture everything that you have, and then from there, put into these various buckets. Now with Protomatrix, what we do is we put this into practice by giving you a software that helps you categorize all your tasks into these dimensions. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Protomatrix here and walk you through the product. So here I have my Protomatrix open. Let me give you a sense of the structure of Protomatrix. On the left-hand side, I have my list of projects. So what do you think about projects? So projects are categories where every single project has its own matrix. As an example, I have a project for personal priorities, I have a project for my team priorities, and then I might have a project for my goals, or if I'm in sales or customer success, I might have a project for each of my customers. And then if I'm in engineering, I might have projects for each of the product that I work on. So here I selected a project, my personal priorities, and as you can see, front and center are the 4 quadrants, right? My high priority task, medium priority, low priority, and then my uncategorized inbox. So let's start with creating some tasks. So obviously one of the most important things in Protomatrix is being able to capture information quickly. I think that's a core tenet of what we do, which is to help you take all the stuff that's in your brain and put it down into something that's tangible. And so let's go ahead and create some tasks. So for example, I want to follow up with webinar participants. Okay, this is obviously something I have to do. And now the way it works in Protomatrix is I can use what's called natural language to set due dates. So I'm gonna go ahead and say due tomorrow, 2 p.m. Now, when I press enter here, Protomatrix will actually create a task for me. Now, one thing you'll notice is that I can actually create a follow-up task as well. So maybe one of my follow-up tasks is schedule new webinars due in 1 week. So as you can see, I can actually type in my task very, very quickly. And that is extremely powerful because when you're brainstorming, you want to be able to go and just capture everything that's on your mind, write it down, and then by using natural language, when I select this task, on the right-hand side is my item details. And as you can see, it actually picked up that tomorrow is December 5th, 2 p.m., my local time. So when you use Protomatrix, you'll use natural language to process your local time as well. And then likewise, here in my task that's due in 1 week, it's actually set to be due in 1 week from today. So when you use Party Matrix, I'd strongly recommend that you use this feature, set those due dates in the item name, do it quickly, so then you're able to capture all that information without having to click through a bunch of buttons. Now let's take a look at the right-hand side. This is called the item details. And so first there's the item name here. And then next to it, you have a couple things. One, let's just say if a task is extremely important and you want it to be top of the list within each of the quadrants, then you click on the star button. And you notice that when I star it, it actually pops at the top of the list here, right? So my general recommendation is star 3 to 5 items or so in any project that are top of mind for you. So as an example, let's just say if you have a series of tasks in one of your initiatives that you're working on, and then you have three or five tasks that are actually the active ones, right? The ones that everyone should be looking at, should be working on. Those are the ones that you should star. When you star a task in Party Matrix, they get treated differently, and I'll go through that a little bit later. Then below that, I have an icon. I can click on this icon to change it. As you can see, Party Matrix again used the natural language. It saw the word schedule, and so it put a calendar clock icon on it. Now below that, you have what's called owner. Now you can use Party Matrix as a personal software. You can use Party Matrix as a team software, and you can use Party Matrix as an organizational wide software. So Party Matrix is able to adapt to all three of those scenarios. In this particular case, when I first create the task, it's assigned to me. Well, let's just say if I actually need someone else to do the scheduling, I simply click on that icon, and now I have a list of users that I work with, and then I go ahead and assign to another person. Now, as you can see, Eugenia is now responsible for the task. Her avatar takes over, and you can upload your picture if you want, so in order to show your face instead of just a generic icon. And then I'm a follower of that task. So in Party Matrix, the way it works is that every task can have one owner. And the idea is that you should have clear responsibilities. You don't want to have a situation where there's multiple owners, right? Because then you're going to have a scenario where someone will say, wait, I thought you were responsible, and so forth. So in Party Matrix, there's one owner, and that is the primary avatar that shows up on every single task. And then next to them, you have these smaller icons. They're called followers. So followers are people that get updates when there are relevant changes to the task, or if you just want to know, be part of the conversation and you want to know when things are changed. So in this case, since I created the task and I assigned it to another person, it actually made them the owner and made me the follower. To the right of that are three things: progress, efforts, reminders, and actually due dates as well. So the due date's already set for me, but progress is from 0 to 100%. So one of the reasons why we want to mark progress is that we actually want to track how things are going. So let me give you an example right here. Since I'm in the matrix view, I can see all the tasks that I have, with respect to the high priority, medium, low priority, and inbox. But what I can do is actually I can switch over to what's called the Kanban view. And in the Kanban view, I can actually see all my tasks as well. But now I can actually see the things that are left to do, the things that are in progress, and the things that are done. So when I go to here and I change the progress bar, so for example, to 30%, as you can see, that task moved from here to here. And then should I be done with this task and I mark it as done, then it moves to the right column. So the reason why this particular view exists is that when you use Party Matrix and you have hundreds of tasks or thousands of tasks across tens of projects, you just want to know what are the things that people have left to do, what are the things they're doing, and what are the things they've finished. And so in Party Matrix, we actually give you all that visibility, and the progress bar is a very good way to do that. Now, next to that, you have effort. So the whole idea around effort is just to track how long a task takes. Not all tasks are created equal, right? And so when you click on effort here, you have a couple of choices for you. And we actually categorize them into major buckets. The idea is not to say that something that takes 15 minutes versus 17 minutes, right? There are time tracking software that's probably better for that. But instead, effort is just a way to give you high level overview of how long a task may take. And so as you can see, 1 hour, 2 hours, half a day is equal to 4 hours, 1 day is equal to 8 hours, half a week is equal to 2.5 days, and then 1 week is 5 work days. So that's sort of the general guideline here. But if I really wanted to be granular, I can actually go ahead and say set effort to 30 minutes. And so Party Matrix is actually, again, able to process that and use natural language to actually override the buttons. And so actually set specific effort hours here within the effort section. Now, to the right of that, you have due dates, which I showed you, and then there's reminders. And it's actually very, very important distinction. In fact, these are the two most important features in Protomatrix from my perspective, and I strongly recommend that all of you guys use it. And here's the reason. Let's just say if you have a task that's very important and it's due in 1 week. Now, when it's due in 1 week, you're going to say due in 1 week. But then if that task takes you 3 days of work to do and you wait for 1 week to get started, then guess what? You're not going to get that done. So then what you want to do is you want to actually have a reminder to remind you to get started prior. But not only that, reminder is a way to actually keep something top of mind. So as an example, for me, when I have to follow up with the customer, I would say due in 1 month, and then I would say remind me monthly. So if I click on this reminder option here, you can see I have a couple of choices. I can say remind me daily, remind me on weekdays, remind everyone monthly. So when I choose remind everyone, it actually sends reminder to the owner as well as all the followers within this task, as opposed to only you. And of course, you can actually click on this button and choose all the options as well. But one of the things I like to do is, again, I like to use natural language in Protomatrix, and I would say remind me daily. So now on a daily basis, I'll get a reminder to work on this task. What happens is that if you don't set a reminder and you only have a due date, you end up in the situation where, one, you're not thinking about the task because the due date is not there yet, right? And then as the due date approaches, you're thinking about the task. But then if you miss it for whatever reasons, because you're busy with everything else, the moment the due date passes, you're not thinking about that task anymore because you have 1,000 other things that's on your plate. So by setting these recurring reminders, it actually brings up all these items that are overdue as well to top of mind. Trust me, it's so powerful, it's so useful, especially when you have a lot of things on your plate, as I know all of you guys do. So I strongly recommend that you set the due dates and reminders, and when those reminders triggered, it shows up in your home view, which I'll show you shortly. Now below that, you have these things called tags. And so as you can see, when I start tags, it shows up here. Now, item tags are completely optional to use, but if you ever want to categorize your tasks in a very extensive manner, that's where you can add additional tags. Down below that, you have this place called chats. And as you can see, this is where I actually typed in some of my commands, but it's also a place to see all the record of all the changes for the task. And it's also a place for you to have a conversation with your coworkers. So for example, let's say I assign this task to Eugenia, and then Eugenia responds and say, hey, hi, could you clarify what you mean? Guess what? She and I can have a whole conversation within the context of this task. The reason why this is so useful is because, you probably use communication software, Microsoft Teams, Slack, or text messages and so forth. And in those scenarios, you talk about 10 or 15 different things at a time, right? And so therefore, your conversation's all over the place. And then if you need to review something, guess what? It's really, really difficult to pull out all the specific things you talk about a specific task from 3 months ago. In Protomatrix, it's different. Protomatrix let you have that conversation within the context of the task. And this is where it's actually even more important. Later on, let's just say if this particular task involves additional people, and then I need to assign this to Tyler, guess what? Tyler can go into the task and see the complete conversation and all the records of all the changes inside Protomatrix. And then not only that, he can actually go up here, go to the version control, and see the changes for the task itself too. So you can think about Protomatrix as a way to keep record of everything that's important when it comes to a team environment. And so when I say that Protomatrix works at a personal level, guess what? When it works at personal level, I'm creating a task for myself, and I'm able to track my due dates, and I'm able to track my effort, right? But in a team environment, everyone's able to actually see all the changes and communicate together. And then at the organizational level, Protomatrix actually offers the entire record of everything here. So then when you go and you need to delegate a suite of tasks to another person, they can actually have a better understanding of all the context that's involved. Now I can go to the notes section, and this is actually where I can actually create additional information on the task. So for example, maybe there are some information that I have As you can see, I click on the Fill with AI feature, and then Protomatrix actually creates a whole subtask plan for me. So for example, if I need to schedule the webinars, these are the 6 things that I have to do. And so this is a feature that you can use. And it's just a way to quickly fill out the information. And then if I look at this and there's something that I like or I don't like, I can remove it as needed. And so imagine I actually like the subtask, but I don't like the rest of it. I'll just delete that. And now I've created my notes. And so now whoever's taken over this task can go and click on each of these checkbox items. And not only that, when I go back to the chat section here, Protomatrix will actually show me the record of all of those subtasks created as well. So when I go back to this task and I mark an item, a subtask item is done. So for example, 2 subtasks here, right? Protomatrix will actually track those records for me. Now down here in the plus section, I actually can do a couple of things. I can actually mention people. So one of the challenges that you've often faced in any software, Protomatrix and other communication and collaboration, project management software in general, is that it's hard to get people's attention because they get overwhelmed with the number of things that's coming at them. So in Protomatrix, we have several ways for you to escalate that. So for example, let's just say I assign a task to Tyler, but he doesn't see it. I would mention Tyler specifically and say, can you take a look? Right? And so in Protomatrix, what that does is actually sends Tyler a special notifications in his home view for him to see the task. And then if you right click on a conversation, then you can actually reply within the thread as well. So you see how I can actually respond to that conversation, and now I can have the whole conversation within the context of the chat. Now on the right-hand side here, you have the resources section. The resources section is where you can actually add files, links, and documents as well relevant to this task. So for example, let's just say schedule new webinars. Maybe I want to go and attach a document for the webinar description or the dates, etc. So actually I can upload that right here. But I can also link to other URLs too. So for example, if I actually have the webinar created, now I have the place to register, I can put that in the URL section. Additionally, Protomatrix lets you prioritize emails, and the emails can be uploaded into the resources section. And then lastly, you can actually link tasks together. So for example, I can say that this task is blocked by this other task, and now I can actually build dependencies in Protomatrix that lets me see the status of things across much longer term horizon. So those are the item details. Now let's step back and go back to our quadrants view to see our full list of priorities here. Now let's just talk about what are some of the other things that you can do in Protomatrix and other types of projects that you may create. So one of the things that I would recommend for vast majority of you, especially if you're starting out new with Protomatrix, is to use it to manage your 2025 goals. With a lot of people have New Year resolution and so forth. And my take is that people don't fulfill the resolution for one particular reason. It's not top of mind, right? So when you have a goal, let's just say something you want to do for this next year, you're very excited about it initially in January, but then by February, you're so busy doing other things, you're not thinking about it so much. And then by March, you've completely forgotten everything. So let's just create a project. And now we go to the left-hand side here. We go to create project. And let me show you how easy it is to create a project in Protomatrix. I have a couple of options. I'm going to go ahead and do a blank project here. And I'm going to say goals for 2025. I actually have this project created already. But then I'll just continue anyways, and I'll go ahead and choose a color. So then maybe this is a color that I have, and then I'll go add project. Now, when I create this project, as you can see, it actually call it high priority, medium, low, and uncategorized. I'm going to go ahead and change this to, so when I create that project, on the right-hand side is what's called the project details. And so in the project details, I can customize information around the projects. For example, I can say who's in it. I can also change the name and color of the quadrants as well. So I'm going to go ahead and change this high priority to long-term goals, and then medium-term goals, and then short-term goals. And then now I've changed the 3 quadrant names to those 3 instead of medium and low priorities. And as you can see, after I changed that, these quadrant names changed. And now let's just say if one of my goals was to read a new business book, okay? So now I can create a task for read a new business book every month. But the problem that I have is that it would not be top of mind for me. So then what I do in Protomatrix is I would go and say, remind me monthly. So now every single month, Matrix will send me a reminder to fulfill this goal. So you can think of how you can adapt this to your specific needs. It could be tasks that you have on a recurring basis, or again, goals that you want to do over the course of the year and making sure that it's top of mind for you. So it's a very powerful way to trick our brain into thinking about the things that are truly important. Because if you don't, guess what? It's the all the other stuff will start taking over, right? All these other uh, emails and then meeting requests. And that's why, spam works so well because they keep on sending you things over and over again. And it makes it becomes top of mind for you and it overtakes all those important things that you're supposed to work on. So let's go back to that project creation page again, and I'll show you a couple of other things. When you go back to create project, I have that option for a blank project, which you saw. And then if I actually click on blank project, I actually can choose from various templates as well. Additionally, in Matrix, I have a couple other things I can do. I can click on public templates. And when I do public templates, I can actually choose a template that we've created for you. So we actually have created more than 1,000 different templates that you can use for free. And everything from 30, 60, 90-day plan, or weekly to-do list, or agendas, or project proposal, and so on and so on. And when you choose one of these, Matrix will actually generate the various categories of quadrant names and so forth for you. And then in some cases, it will actually even pre-populate some tasks for you as well. Now, one of the things you can do in Matrix is actually build your own templates. So in this particular case, I've saved a couple of my own templates. So imagine if I actually have employee onboarding as a recurring task. Every time I onboard my employee, I would actually have a series of tasks for them. I can make my own templates. I can click on this and then say the employee will start on January 1st or something like that. And then when I click use templates, Matrix will create all the tasks for me and then set them forward from January 1st. And so that's one of those things that will save you a lot of time and effort as you use Matrix as well. So that's how you create the various projects in Matrix. Now, let me show you a really powerful way to actually use Matrix and work with other people. One of the challenges I've seen customers have over and over again is actually reporting the information that they have to others. So let me give you an example. Let's just say now I choose a project called Create Fiscal Year 2025 Go-to-Market Plan, right? These are the tasks that I have. Now, one of the things that I might get asked about is, hey, what are the things that Remy is working on in this project? Now, guess what? I can click on this filter. I can click Assign To. I can choose Remy. Now, Matrix will show me all the tasks that Remy has. Now, not only that, I can actually need to send this to my coworker. I would go to this thing called multi-selection. I select all items, and then I choose email items. And what Matrix does, it actually builds you a nice email report that you can send to your manager, your coworker, or your CEO. And the same thing applies to everything else as well. So imagine if you actually use Matrix to manage all your tasks and then manage all your client work. And then your client says, hey, what are the things that you are working on, right? You can actually go to Matrix, activate whatever filter is needed, go again to the multi-selection, select all those tasks, and be able to generate that email report. But here's another thing. What if, Remy, for some reason, is on leave and is no longer available to take those tasks? Well, guess what? I can again go select Remy, and then I need to assign this and I go select all again, and then I go and change owner. And now can I change the owner to somebody else? And with just those few clicks, I have reassigned all the tasks from Remy to another person. And guess what? When Eugenia goes into the task, she'll get the full context of everything as well, because it's all part of the history, all parts of the conversation. And then all the resources that's there will also be available to her. So it is so powerful that you can do that within the context of every single project. And then if you look at the very top here, there's a couple of other things I want to highlight. The matrix is our core view, but you can also go to the list view and it actually shows you all the tasks and you can sort this sort of like an Excel document. What I like this particular view for is actually to help you find things that are overdue, because something that's overdue, it will show up red like this, right? And so you can see it very easily. And again, I can go and let's say I need to select a couple of different tasks here, and I go ahead and change the due date. I'm going to go and say due on December 31st, and I can save. And as you can see, I've actually bulk edited a bunch of different tasks and change the due date because I missed that particular due date for whatever reason. And then again, if I need to send a report, I select all, and then I actually choose email items, and Promatrix will build me an email report of all those tasks for me. So it's a very useful way, again, to summarize all the tasks that are overdue or all the tasks assigned to different people. You saw the Kanban view, which is where you can actually see all the tasks that are to do, the tasks that are in progress, the tasks that are done. And then you can actually go to the calendar view, which actually shows you all the items that have due dates across the next week or month. But when you have tasks that actually spans much longer than that, then that's when you click on the timeline and Gantt chart view. So Promatrix actually automatically builds you these Gantt charts based on the information that you provide. So you don't have to go and fiddle with building Gantt charts and all that. All you're doing is setting due dates, and then in some cases you set those dependencies, and Promatrix will actually build this for you. So the reason why you want to go to the Gantt chart versus the calendar view is if you are working on things that spans across months, quarters, or years, right? The calendar is good for seeing things that are due this week or today or this month. But then when you look at much longer term horizon, the Gantt chart is superior. And Promatrix has a couple of other views that you can explore when you're actually using the software. Now, here we talk about the project. And so when you have Promatrix, don't be afraid to create projects. That's one of my advice here. Initially, you might have a few projects that you care about, such as your personal priorities, team priorities, and so forth. But then if anything belongs in its own quadrants, just create a project for it, as long as you're trying to prioritize each of those series of tasks separately. As an example, let's say if you're an operations manager and you oversee 3 or 4 different plants, create a project for each plant. So then you can track the priorities for all of that. In my work account, I have more than 300 projects. I have tens of thousands of tasks. Not all of them are assigned to me, but I actually have all of that. And Promatrix actually lets me manage all of that. And I'll show you how. First, if I ever need to find out what I got to do for somebody or what somebody has to do for me, I can simply go to the one-on-one view. So Promatrix one-on-one view is a very unique feature. And what it does is actually helps you find the things you have to work on with your respective coworkers. So for example, if I go to the one-on-one here and I select Remy, actually I see all the tasks that he and I have in common, right? And so these are the things that are assigned to Remy or that I'm a follower of, or Remy's a follower of, and that I am as well. And so when you click on these tasks, actually what happens is that I can see these various tasks here, right? And then I can see that the owner is Remy, and then I can actually ensure that I know what it is that he's working on and what are the things that's overdue. And then not only that, I can actually click on Add Share Task here, and then I can actually create a task directly from this view. So when I have a one-on-one meeting with somebody, right, I want to be able to capture those tasks very, very quickly, and it automatically assigns it to the person, adds me as a follower so that I'll get updates for it. So that's a one-on-one view here. And again, you can select the task and build reports as needed. And then the other thing you have is actually you have what's called the global calendar. So I showed you the calendar on a per project basis, but sometimes you actually want to know what are all the things that you have to do across all of your projects. And so Promatrix calendar view gives you that full perspective. But here's where it's actually really useful. You can click on the filter and you can say, what are all the things assigned to Tyler, right? And now when I choose that option, suddenly I don't see all these tasks that's not relevant. I see the tasks relevant to Tyler. And then not only that, I can click on project and I can choose specific projects I want to map out as well. So Promatrix, you can think of Promatrix as a powerful way to filter whatever information that you need and pull it into one central place for you to take actions on. So when you go to this option here, you can mess around with the various options to find out exactly what you need to do or what someone has on their plate. Then you have what's called the search view. The search view is what's called the master view. This shows you everything in Promatrix that you have access to. And so when you click on the search view, it shows you all the information. Again, you can go to filter, right? So one of the questions you might want to ask is, as if you're a manager and you have a couple of direct reports and you want to know what are the things that they finished. Guess what? You select the person, you choose finish, and then you choose group by projects, And now Matrix actually shows you everything that that person has finished across the various projects. And so again, this information is available. You can actually select those items and generate a report, or you can even select it and then make an CSV out of it as needed. And so if you ever have to go and do your performance reviews, guess what? It's so easy because you can go to filter, select yourself, select the things you finish, and then build a report for it that you can actually copy and paste into your performance review dashboard. So it's a very useful way to track all that information. And then lastly, you have the global Gantt chart. And the global Gantt chart is the exact same thing as the Gantt chart on a per project basis, except it grabs information across all your projects, right? And again, it actually incorporates these filters. And so you can actually see the global Gantt chart for a specific person across all your projects. And this is very useful, especially if you manage multiple projects that spans multiple years, and you just want to know what's on any one person's plate across the next several months or several quarters or several years. Matrix actually generate all that for you here. I want to switch gear a little bit and talk about email management. Actually, that's one of the top reasons why customers come to Matrix is because they want to actually have better control of emails. So if you happen to use Outlook, we actually have a very, very good Outlook integrations that allow you to actually work in Matrix completely inside Outlook. So as an example here, I actually click on Matrix. I can actually install Matrix from the left-hand side here, pin Matrix, and this is the universal app. So this allows me to access the entire Matrix software within Outlook. I don't even have to go to the Matrix website. But let's just say if I get an email and it's a very important email and I need to make sure that I don't forget to respond to it. Now, currently, you probably have a couple of options. And if you're like most people, you'll flag the email. And then, you can pin the email, you can flag it, you can snooze it, and so forth. The big challenge, though, is if you have 50 flag emails, it's not going to be easy to know what you need to work on. And there's no central place for you to see what is it that you actually have to work on, what priority is it, and then what are all the other relevant information. So Matrix has this thing called the Turn Email into Task extension. And so again, I'm in Outlook. I click on the apps here. I click on Matrix, Turn Email into Task. I have the option to prioritize an email. And with just those few clicks, I can take any email, convert it into a task. I can choose the task name. I can choose what project it belongs in. So let's just say I get an email from a particular client. I'll put it in that client's project. I can choose what priority level, quadrant 1 here, and I can even assign it to another person, set a due date, and click capture email. And so Matrix now creates a task for me. And on the right-hand side, this is my item details here, right? It's assigned to my coworker. There's a due date set. And then not only that, my coworker can go to the resources section, open the email file, and respond to the customer if needed. Now, remember that I told you about the importance of the reminder, right? So imagine if you actually just set the due dates, and maybe this email is so important, you want to say remind everyone weekly. And so now on a weekly basis, everyone will get a reminder to make sure that you respond to this particular email. Such a powerful way to prioritize your emails and making sure that they don't fall through the cracks, especially if you have emails related to tasks that are much further out. Especially if they're like 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, flagging the email is just not sufficient. Now, one of the things that you can do with Matrix as well is actually you can attach emails to an existing task. So let's just say if you have a follow-up email from a customer and you already have a task for it, we're the only solution that I'm aware of that lets you take an email and actually associate with an existing task. So you can just search for the task here, click attach, and Matrix will now let you upload that email into that item as well. So now you have all of it captured in one section in the resources area. Now, if you use Outlook for web and if you use Chrome and Edge, we actually have a couple of really cool way to actually take that even further. So let's just say if I'm on Matrix, I'm on Outlook for web here, right? And I get an email from a customer and you see here's a couple of action items. Guess what? I can select the text here, right click, and then choose Matrix for Edge and say save selection to Matrix. And that's it. I've created a task. And what's really neat about this is actually it works from anything. So when you're in Matrix, if you're on Edge or Chrome and you have our Edge and Chrome extension, you're on a particular website, you just select the text, you right click on it, and you choose Protomatrix, you save selection, and Protomatrix will create the task for you in our system, as easy as that. The other thing you can do with Outlook is actually use our inbox address. So I'll go ahead and go back to Outlook here. When you click on your Protomatrix here, you can actually go to what's called the inbox. And so every single one of you has what's called a secret inbox address. If you click on this right here, you get a special email address. Here's my recommendation. Take that address and save it as a contact on your phone. The reason is if you send an email to that address, it creates a task in Protomatrix. So now let's just say instead of actually, let's just say, for me, for example, I'm on my phone all the time on my iPhone, and I don't use Outlook on my iPhone. I use Apple Mail. So when I have a task in Protomatrix, I'm sorry, if I get an email and I want to make sure that I prioritize that email, instead of clicking on the Outlook extension on the mobile device, I simply click forward. And then since I saved the contact already, I just type in inbox, and then I can actually send this email into Protomatrix. But I can go ahead and say, due tomorrow, 2 p.m., remind me daily. Again, Protomatrix actually will go and process these commands and actually set me the due date as well as send me a daily reminder to make sure that I address that email. What's nice about this is actually this works with Gmail. So if you happen to use Gmail instead of Outlook, guess what? Protomatrix has a Gmail extension as well that lets you convert any email into a task, but also you can forward any Gmail emails into the Outlook, into the inbox address, and it creates a task in Protomatrix. So keep that in mind. Very, very useful way to track all those important emails that you get. And then Protomatrix also works inside Microsoft Teams. So if you have Microsoft Teams, install Protomatrix here, pin it on the left-hand side, you get the full access to the Protomatrix software inside Teams. And then not only that, we actually integrate so deeply into Teams, you can actually add what's called a one-on-one view in Teams as well. And then you can actually select each of the coworkers that you work with and then access all the tasks that you have in common with them inside Teams without having to leave Microsoft Teams to access Protomatrix. Now, if you use Protomatrix a lot, I do recommend a couple of things. One, you should actually activate Protomatrix alerts in Microsoft Teams so you get notifications of all the changes. Two, you can actually download the desktop application. So if you go to affluence.com/downloads, we actually have native Windows, native Mac applications. So what's nice about that is actually it sends you notifications of changes, right? So if a coworker assigns you a task, you'll get a notification. Very, very useful way to keep Protomatrix top of mind. And so I've been recommending that more and more for people who are very serious about investing their time and effort in Protomatrix. And then, of course, we also have a couple other things such as what's called connectors. And so in Protomatrix, you can actually connect with other applications, including, Planner, To Do, et cetera. And you actually pull those tasks into Protomatrix as a way to quickly capture all those things that you've created in Planner and To Do. Now, let me go back to Protomatrix for a second and show you a couple of other things. We talk about, how we can create tasks and assign tasks and so forth, but where do you start your day? So in Protomatrix, there's something called the home view. And so when you look at the home view, it's this little icon here, and there's a number next to it. That number represents alerts, and alerts are things that require your attention. So let me give you an example here. These are tasks that require my attention, and that could be tasks that are assigned to me, due dates that trigger, reminders that trigger, or tasks that I follow that have been updated. So all of that would show up here. Earlier, I mentioned how you can actually mention another collaborator. So for example, when you mention a collaborator here, it actually pops it to the top of their alerts. And that's how you get people's attention. So when you use Protomatrix and you're assigning tasks to people, I actually also recommend, mentioning them if necessary to escalate that further, right? Because everyone's so busy, they have so many things on their plate that, sometimes they forget to check, and then sometimes they get lost in all the alerts that they may get. And so that's what mention is for. That brings it to the very top to escalate and get their attention. And then when you assign a task to somebody as well, there's actually a special tag that shows up, and those are also considered to be high priority. Now, when you start your day in Protomatrix, you typically start on the home view, see all these alerts that you have, but then also you can go to what's called your My Items. These are all the tasks that you have in Protomatrix. And then if you click on Agenda, these are all the things that you have to do this week and then all the things that are overdue as well. And so if you go to this top right here, you can actually choose to see only the items that are assigned to you, or then you can also see the items that you also follow, right? So it really depends. If you're a manager and you're doing a lot of task delegation, then you want to choose item that I follow. If you're if you're an individual contributor and you only care about the stuff that you're working on, then you choose the item that you own. So that's how you actually access all this information. And so on a day-to-day basis, this is where you go to see the things that you have to do. Now let's talk about some really advanced features in Matrix. So as you create tasks in Matrix, there's a couple things that happens. One, you might have repetitive processes. So let me give an example. Let's just say if you have to do, a series of audit tasks for a customer, right, every single quarter, every single year, if you're an accounting firm or something like that. When you're in Matrix, you can actually create all those tasks, and then you go to the top right here, and you can actually save that as a template, or you can export as a CSV. So Matrix actually lets you take all these action items you have in any single project, export it as a CSV, and then import it back as a CSV. So that's a very powerful way to actually bulk export things and then bulk import things. Not only that, if you actually build a whole process in Matrix and then or in Microsoft Excel, you can actually import that as a template in Matrix. So what happens when you save it as a template is it shows up when you create a new project. You can choose from your templates, and then it will actually set those due dates for you relative to the start date that you set, right? So I mentioned earlier how you might have an employee onboarding process, and the employee onboarding process might have 15 things the employee is supposed to do. Guess what? You create those 15 things in Matrix, you save it as a template, and now when you have a new employee, you don't have to create those tasks again. You choose to create from template, and Matrix will build all those tasks and set the due dates relative to you. Now, let's just say if you manage a lot of clients and you have a project for every single one of your clients, and now you just want to have a dashboard project to see the status of all of those things. Well, Matrix actually lets you link the projects together and nest them. So I'll show you how that works. Let's just say I have this project here. I can go to the top right, and then I can choose copy link to project. And now I can go to a project, and I can actually add an item. And instead of typing in any text, I paste that link. And as you can see, when I do that, Matrix actually pulls in information around that project and shows it here within my quadrant, right? And now I can see, this thing has one task on the bottom right. And if I have, overdue tasks, and it shows up here red. And from this one view, I can see everything that's happening across all of my projects. And so if you're, let's just say with Matrix, and you use it with your executive team, right? Your CEO or your senior executive might not want to have to go through every single project in Matrix. Instead, they can create this dashboard project, links to all the other sub-projects here. And so from one central view, they can see, okay, these are the high priority projects, these are the medium priority, low priority, and then they can drill down if needed. So that's something to keep in mind as you expand your usage of Matrix. I actually really like this feature just as a one central place to see what everything is happening. And so again, you can customize the quadrant names here to reflect whatever it is that is important to you and your organization. So I strongly recommend that you adapt the quadrant names and the colors specific to your needs. As you can see on the left-hand side here, I actually also have regular projects, and then I have star projects, and I have pin projects. So for any project, you can star it on the top here, and when you star it, it pops at the top of the list. Now, if you have a project with multiple team members, so for example, I have this project, I can click on members, I can invite another team member here. Now, when that team member accesses Matrix, they can see all the tasks here. And if I star it, it goes to the top of the list for all the people within the members, all the members of this particular project. But sometimes there are projects that only I care about, and I want it at the top of my list. I can just right click on it and then choose pin project. And so that allows me to actually put at the very top of my list. And for me, I just have a few projects that I care about that I always look at. And then I also star 5 to 10 projects that are the most important projects. So despite having hundreds of projects, I'm actually not that disorganized. I'm actually able to see exactly what I care about and what I need to work on. Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to my presentation here. And let's talk about what are the things that you can do starting today. One, if you haven't signed up for Prioritization yet, make sure you sign up for it. If you use Teams and Outlook, then make sure that you install them in Teams and Outlook as the universal app, and also for Outlook as the add-in to convert emails into tasks. I also recommend downloading the desktop app so that Matrix stays top of mind for you. Sometimes one of the biggest challenges that all of us face is just forgetting, right? Forgetting to create tasks, forgetting to look at our Party Matrix. So by having a desktop app, it's always there. And then you saw how easy it is for you to create tasks from Party Matrix. I definitely would recommend creating a project highlighting your top priorities. One of my recommendations is actually creating a project called Team Priorities, and then just sharing that during your team meetings. And what happens is that everyone will be able to see exactly the priorities of everyone else, and it just makes the conversation a lot more effective as well. Then make sure you set due dates and reminders. Remember the differences between the two. Set due dates and then set reminders to make sure that stays top of mind. And then you can actually just have tasks that only have reminders, and then of course tasks that only have recurring due dates as needed. One of the things that I also recommend is actually, start by creating a matrix of all your priorities, your work priorities, and then asking your coworkers to do the same. And then you sit down and compare notes. It is so amazing what happens when we actually put things down and be explicit around our priorities. One of the challenges I've seen over and over again is that everyone thinks they know what everyone else is working on, and everyone thinks that they are on the same page as everyone else. But the reality is, it's not always the case. And so every once in a while, you'll find something that actually stands out and something that you thought was extremely important, but is not, or vice versa. Your manager didn't think this was important at all, and you thought it was important, and you've been working so hard on getting that done, and guess what? It doesn't matter. So those are the kind of things that you want to capture upfront by actually sitting down and comparing your Party Matrix with your coworkers. And then my other recommendation is just to actually set 1 hour each week, either at the beginning or the end of the week, dedicated to reviewing your priorities. If you don't prioritize your time, someone else will, right? And so I know that for everyone here, the reason why you're even here in the first place is that you have so many things on your plate, you have so many emails, so many tasks. And so if that's the case, it is so important to actually spend time prioritizing, so then you're working on the right things. My take is that, doing the wrong things right is way worse than doing nothing. And so sometimes it's better to actually reflect and make sure that we're working on the right things rather than the wrong things. Now, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have in the chats. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and send them in the chat right now. And I'd be happy to walk through those questions. Thank you so much. Okay, I have a question around subtasks. Yes, so we actually have subtasks. I'll show you how that works. So when you go back to Party Matrix here, and so let's just say, I can create a task with subtask. So let's just say I go into this task here, I can click on notes and I should click on subtasks, subtask 1, subtask 2, subtask 3. So as you can see, I can actually create these subtasks here. And when I go to the chat, it actually should show up here, but that's how I would create subtasks. And so now the subtask is not designed to be, very sophisticated. And the reason is that it's, this is supposed to be basic task and so forth. But if you actually want to create additional dependencies, then you would go to resources, and then you can actually create linked task. And now you actually be able to build a bunch of different tasks that are linked together. They are still independent, but when you create linked tasks, they show up in the resources, and that allows you to jump around between all these tasks that you have. So for example, I might get an email from a customer. In fact, this happened today. I got an email from a customer, and within it, there were a couple of things that were reported. I went and I used my extension. I converted that email into a task. And so that showed up in my Matrix. Then I went to the top right here and I create linked task and then I assign that to various people. And so now everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do. And then they can actually click back and go back to the original email that the customer sent. And so that's how I would create those various subtasks and link tasks and so forth. Are there any other questions? Now, one of the things I want to mention is that, as you use Matrix more, there's other features for you to explore. So for example, I have a webinar that's deep dives into email management because you can actually build automations around Matrix emails as well. So as an example, every project in Matrix has an email address, right? And so you can actually go to a project here, project details. You go to project and get email address. And so you can actually build automation. So then, and whenever you get an email from a particular customer, you can actually have it automatically forwarded into specific quadrants in Matrix. And then the other thing you can do in Matrix as well is actually you can go to the workload report here. So if, one of the arguments I would make for you to bring on your whole team or your whole organization into Matrix is that you can go to the workload here and see what everyone's working on and ensure that no one is overloaded with work and you can reprioritize it. And then there was a question earlier around effort. If you go to this view, you can actually change the mode to effort. And so what Matrix does now is then it takes all those efforts that you have, the effort data that you have, and actually shows you, the number of people and the amount of effort hours that they have for any single day. So again, this is automatically generated from the data that you have. And then there's a couple of other things around workload management. And so there's a webinar for that as well. And so again, I'll send that link right here for you. So if you ever have any questions or interest in watching the other webinars, you can go ahead and go there. And then feel free to reach out to our help desk if you have any particular technical questions, or reach out to me if you have any feedback. Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll give your time back. Oh, okay, I see a question here. Can you use Matrix to schedule time in our calendar for activities? So Matrix actually can sync to your calendar in a few ways. First of all, you can actually go to the, see here. If you go to the connectors, you can actually pull in your Outlook calendar into Matrix. When you pull in your Outlook calendar into Matrix, then you'll see the task that you've created in Matrix. Now, what happens is that in Matrix, every single project actually has its own calendars. And so if you click on a project and you go to project details here, on the bottom right, you actually have get linked to project calendar. And then, for example, I'll go ahead and click on that. I copy that. I can go to Outlook here, click on my calendar. I can go add calendar, subscribe from web, paste the calendar, and then I can call the calendar name. And so what happens here is that I can actually see the tasks I have from Matrix in my calendar. Now it's a one-way sync, and so it actually doesn't block off your calendar, but then you can see it on, with respect to the rest of your calendar. Yes, so I'll send the recording after we process it on our side, and then we'll also upload it on our webinar website as well. Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful.